Welcome to Catalyst Creators, where we sit down with groundbreaking authors and innovators who are actively shaping our tomorrow. I'm your host, Kamilah Paden, and together we're bookmarking the future of innovation. Hello, and welcome to this episode of Catalyst Creators. Today we have Fiona Passantino. She is a visual communication specialist and a corporate storyteller who works with major multinationals to message and educate through imagery, animation, and powerful text. Originally from America, she moved to Europe during her junior year abroad and never returned, living in London, Rome, Vienna, Amsterdam, Budapest, all the places that we want to visit, before settling in The Hague with her Dutch husband and 2 children. She specializes in transforming complex concepts into accessible content for non-technical audience through innovative digital mobile-first platforms. So welcome, Fiona.
Thank you, Kamilah. It's wonderful to be here.
Thank you. Now, this is the first question I'm going to ask. This is the first question I always ask. What question does your book answer?
There are a lot of questions, actually. I would say because I'm writing for non-technical. So this is a book written for people who are working professionals who are perhaps in HR or communications or sales, marketing, admin, top-level leadership, let's say managers and so on. So these are not data analysts, these are not coders, these are not software engineers, data architects. These are non-technical people. So it's how can I become part of the conversation as a non-technical? We see a lot of this being developed in a very small portion of our community. So it's kind of a Northern Californian quite white male, young demographic that is determining our collective future. And it's very tech heavy. So if you're a non-technical and you're not belonging to that particular group, you can feel very left out of the conversation. So the question that I'm hoping to answer is how do I feel empowered? How do I get to a place where I can use this to empower myself, but also to drive the full conversation forward and help build our own future, collectively.
And that's so important because a lot of the times the barrier is the language, it's the understanding. So when you have somebody that's very technical and they're talking in a way, a concept that can be simple, but in their mind, they can only describe it in that way, it's a barrier to communication. So I can definitely see the importance of that.
Yes. It's a different part of your brain is the ability to communicate things simply. And the kind of brain that it takes to create this kind of code is not the same kind of brain that can explain things in a way that normal people can understand.
Facts. I have been across many a table, and my job has sometimes been just to translate. It's just to translate what is happening and what needs to be done. Being able to bridge that gap is pertinent.
100%.
What do you think are some unique challenges? I mean, I know we talk about the communication and the ability to communicate and to understand. What other unique challenges do frontline professionals face when adapting AI that executives or technical staff may not understand?
Well, I think there are a few things. First of all, we have to overcome our own fear of this software. We don't really understand what it is. Even the people who build the thing don't really understand what it is or how it works, which is crazy, right? But in order to implement it, we have to lose our fear. And the quickest way to lose our fear is to A, understand it, and B, laugh about it. So the humor that's in it, both the writing and the comics, is very strategic. It's not just there, humor unlocks your mind.
Yes,
so you're
it
able
does.
to take in very complex, very technical information. So it's there for a reason. And I think that was the first thing I wanted to tackle was the barrier, the fear-based barrier. So I think that is one of the big challenges, is the fear. The second challenge is who has time to learn this stuff on top of a very, very busy life? Like we're all overloaded. We're all working really hard. Number two is where do I find the time to understand this? Because I put myself on a master's program on top of my other masters, learning this stuff. I spent almost a year really deeply understanding what is AI, how does it work, how does the brain work, what does it mean for us? And people don't have time to do that. So, being able to take these really complex ideas and put them into a book that you can, get through in a weekend, that's hopefully the second obstacle that this should tackle.
And, I want to apologize to my audience. We didn't introduce the book, The AI Powered Professional. So, one of the reasons that I wanted to have Fiona on, because not only because I'm a nerd about I did not go through the year-long program. I went through a certificate program to get some background, but, for the same reasons. It's just like I knew it's something that I needed to understand in order to continue in business. But the way she approaches it is so different in that she's using it a graphic novel in order to explain those complex concepts. Can you talk about your decision to leverage the graphic novel in order to share that information or make it accessible for the non-technical?
Well, for me, it's a no-brainer because that's always the way I've done everything. I've been a comic artist my whole life. So my first book I wrote when I was in my teens, it was like a graphic novel for kids. And all my books are highly visual. I love comic books. I was obsessed with comics when I was a kid. And it's a great way of storytelling because it just taps on all of our brain functions that we need to really understand material. It's heavily visual, low on text. You don't need lots and lots of text to describe what's going on in the scene. You see it because of the picture that it's in. It's very emotive. It's very emotional. You're able to really live in the role of the character. So, I mean, we've been telling stories this way since the caveman days. We've been talking with comics for more years, for more millennia than we've been just writing in dry, let's say, books. And just because somebody's an adult does not mean that you're too old or too cool or too smart to appreciate visuals and illustrations. Like when did my books stop being illustrated books? Like I remember as a child, we'd read like illustrated books and like, ooh, that's
Right.
fun. But then suddenly, like, what happened? Like, where did my illustrations
Where'd
go? I
all
go
the
to
pictures
college.
go?
Yeah, right. And something happened like, oh, you're a grown up now, no more illustrations. Like, why? We need illustrations. I think our brain is highly visual. We process them faster than text.
We
We
do.
intuitively understand illustrations quicker than text. It resonates with the language of our brain. And so not having illustrations is, I think, a real wasted opportunity.
No, I mean, I definitely agree. Just understanding how we're processing information and how, even with our attention spans getting shorter, the ability to allow our brain to process things in different ways, I think are it's going to be very beneficial, especially when it comes to new concepts. Because you're right, nobody really wants to read the manual to how anything is built. But,
Right.
if you see those visuals and being able to put it together that way, I think that's more beneficial and can be consumed easier.
Yeah.
So, like I said, that's why I was excited about the book. I was just like, "Oh, an AI graphic novel. This is wonderful. I need to
Great.
talk to Fiona." So, that's actually what made me excited. Wait, and when you look at it, Marvel has gotten it. Marvel and DC, those comics are clearly not all for children. They're definitely, and they're making a lot of money from the adults. So, the value
Yep.
in having that imagery and being able to consume that is still relevant in this market.
Yeah, I mean, and the other thing, like you bring up Marvel, that is also quite a demographic, right? So
Right.
Marvel is created for young men, and I really specifically leverage the female voice in this
Okay.
because a lot of the non-technical communicators are female, HR people, administrators, managers, top-level leadership even, and a lot of the comic books that I've written until now have been pretty specifically geared male, young male, and I think like why? There's no reason for that.
So yeah, so you're shattering illusions on all fronts. So you have the graphic novel, you're speaking in a female voice. I'm coming from a marketing background. And so there was a time in marketing where you didn't have to be as technical, but now you have to understand the data, you have to understand the systems, you have to understand all of that in order to be effective at your job. So speaking to, the broader range of people that don't have necessarily that technical background, or in their mind, they don't think they have that technical background because it all sounds like a different language to them. Marketing to them is definitely, a great way to go.
Yeah.
So, your book aims to make jobs easier, faster, and more fun with AI. And, a lot of people don't see AI and fun in the same vein. So, can you share a specific example of how, a task that AI has transformed in a surprising way that, may be of interest or, surprising to our audience?
Absolutely. I'm a trainer and a teacher.
Okay.
So I go into offices, to go into businesses, companies, work with leadership and sit down, for full days or half days, and we talk about, how we integrate AI into workflows and into teams and into leadership practices. And one of the exercises I do, it really brings it kind of home, is you take a piece of paper, you draw a line down the middle, and on one side, you just take a line, piece of paper, down the middle. On one side, you draw like a happy smiley face. And then on the other side, you draw like an unhappy face. And then you list all the things that you love to do under the happy face, right? Like,
Okay.
I love talking to customers. I love teaching. I love mentoring. I love, solving complex problems. I love doing creative work. And then you look, what are all the things I really don't like to do? I don't like reading endless emails. I don't like going to meetings where I have absolutely nothing to say. I don't like going through, contracts and comparing notes. I don't like looking at spreadsheets. I don't like filling in forms. So you list these things down, like all the things you love and all the things you hate. And then you exchange it with your neighbor. And they're all the same. It doesn't matter what field you're in or what you're doing. You all love the human work. You love creative work. You love having a connection with other people in your jobs. You love solving complex problems with customers. What do you hate? Robotic, automated work where you're just filling in forms or putting processes together or reading endless documents. And this is actually the stuff that AI does very, very well. So if you put it in that context, you say, okay, AI, if I understand AI and if I know how to use this thing, it's going to take all the garbage that I don't like to do in my day, and it's going to do that stuff. And I get to focus my time on building human connections with customers, with my colleagues, with creative work, with deep thinking work. That makes me happy. So then it's like, oh, now I understand why I'm doing what I'm doing. And once you get the why down, then the what do I need to learn? How do I need to do this? That's easy.
Okay. I'm going to make that list. I was just like, oh, happy face, smile face. Okay, that's
We all
that's
have
simple
that
enough.
list.
You have described yourself as the nervous non-technical professional. What was your turning point when it came to embracing AI?
I'm still nervous, especially when we're looking at like chips being embedded in our bodies. I mean, that
Yes.
makes me nervous. It makes me nervous that, we don't meet as humans anymore.
Right.
The deep fake technology makes me, I mean, I will probably die nervous. I mean, it's just
Well,
a
there are a
thing.
lot of things, especially since you've been through the AI training and education. The more you learn, the more nervous you become, and that I do
Yeah,
understand.
I think that's probably so that's not much of an advertising for you, like getting your knowledge up. But yes, I mean, absolutely. I do think knowledge is power, and that calms the nervousness down because it's not magic. It's not like Harry Potter, floating truck
It
kind
is
of
not.
magic. It's a tool,
Mhm.
and it's very, very intelligent. It's very creative. I believe that it is a creative tool. It's a non-human intelligence at work, which we're trying to understand. The more you know about the technical aspects as to how you run inference and how you go from a very generalized, how you do back propagation, forward propagation, how the little gerbils that run the hamster wheels that make this thing run, how that works, then you understand, okay, so it'll be good at this stuff. It'll be good at pattern recognition. It'll be bad at understanding emotional context. It'll be bad at understanding how some spatial information relates to visual, relates to cognitive. I mean, that's what we humans do very well. We're
That's
able
what
to
we do.
connect pieces of our intelligence together, stitch it together, and we're really good at context. AI, not so much. It needs all the context. We humans are good at critical thinking. We're good at fact checking. AI, not so much. We still got a hallucination problem here.
And I laugh because I was using an AI platform yesterday, and then I asked to do some research, and so I asked, "Where did you get this from?"
Right.
And because sometimes, and it'll say it's like we don't know if this is accurate or not, but this is what we have, and so you really have to dig in because it gives this disclaimer up front.
It's like having a really well-meaning, very cheerful intern, that's not very, that
Yeah,
might be a little sloppy, really wants to please,
really wants
but
to, right?
yeah. And it's like, oh, here's all this information. Is it right? I hope so, And then your job, you're managing this intern
Yeah.
or collection of interns. Your job is to check their work, right?
Yes.
So we can't skip that part.
Yeah, and I think that is a very important fact when you're dealing with AI because a lot of people takes anything it gives you and thinks that it's correct, but you still, like
Right.
you said, have to check the work.
That's where the knowledge part comes in, where you
Mhm.
see, okay, it's not magical. It's a tool and it doesn't always work perfectly. And
Mhm.
here's why it's good at certain things, and here's why it's not good at other things, and why we human brains need to be part of the process.
Okay. Definitely agree, obviously. So, your book discusses both practical advice and bigger questions. What ethical considerations do you think are most overlooked in the AI discussion?
Right. Well, I think we're doing a good job talking about data privacy and data security. I mean, that's
Okay.
obviously the first thing that comes up because when you put something in a context window, off it goes to a data center in Silicon Valley or China or elsewhere, right?
Mhm.
So we're sort of getting a grip as to understanding whatever you put in there, be comfortable with it in its pure form being in someone else's house. And if you're
Yes.
okay with that, then good. So we're learning how to remove sensitive material, etc. So we're getting, a good education on that.
Getting better, yeah.
What we're not really talking about is what this is going to do to our society. We are seeing that if we're dealing with a digital layer in whatever context it is, it can be fake, no matter what it is. Even our conversation, I could also not be real. I mean, like it's that good now.
Yes.
And anything you see that's a photo, that's an image, that's an audio, that's music, even could be AI generated. And we're starting to understand that. But what I'm worried about is we're not really talking about what that's going to mean to us as a society. We're going to lose a lot of our social skills because we need to embrace our human to human skills and get a lot better at being humans because the AI part is going to take over those kinds of tasks. We humans are going to have to get better at our communication. We're going to have to become better at empathy, understanding where other people are coming from, listening, deep listening, and forming connections, forming emotional bonds with other human beings. And I fear that those are exactly the skills that we're losing. I always try to create physical context for any kind of learning environment. So go for the live engagement, go for live events, big where humans get together in a live function because 90% of what we're communicating is body language, is vibes, energy, if you believe that, whatever. But it's not just able to be transmitted in a digital space. And we're seeing less of that rather than more of that. I think COVID was a big factor in all of this that
Right.
got us really super digital. And I think our kids are also demonstrating that they are not choosing to go out into the world and meet with physical humans because it's not efficient. And I do worry that that is going to, have a creeping effect on how we live as humans.
Okay. One more question before we get to some rapid fire general questions about you as an author. What role do you think storytelling plays as organizations are looking to successfully navigate this AI transformation, which is not like, I wouldn't say like it's a one-shot deal AI transformation, but as they're diving deeper into the space, how do you think storytelling plays a role?
Oh, it's essential.
Yeah.
Humans learn from stories. We're wired that way. We're wired to be storytellers and we're wired to listen to stories. If you hear a fact in a vacuum, you will probably not remember it because we're exposed to, I think, something like, 600 times more information per day than even 2 generations ago.
And it's getting faster. It's,
Oh,
it's,
yes. Oh,
yes.
yes. Oh, yes. If you tie that same fact to a story, which unlocks our deep, memory, which is our
Right.
emotional core, I can guarantee you'll remember that tomorrow, right? So you'll remember a story about somebody and then a fact that's attached to it. It's like piggybacking on to that story much quicker than you'll remember a story in the vacuum. So anytime any corporate storytelling is happening or anytime anything complex needs to be explained to
Right.
normal people, wrapping a story around it is essential. It's what we humans have been doing, since we crawled out of our caves. Whenever we have something important to tell, don't eat those berries, be nice to your mother-in-law, like any story that any important thing that we had to was always wrapped in a story.
Yes.
And that's how we passed on our values to each, from one generation to the next. And it's how we remember these very, very critical facts.
Yeah. Okay. Phenomenal. Okay. So here's some rapid fire questions. What most unexpected source of inspiration do you get from your work?
What source do I get from my work or
For
from the
for
outside world? Or wow, that's a long one. That's great. Being exposed to lots and lots of different countries and being out in the world, like the physical experience, not just sitting and reading articles all day long, but actually getting out and talking to people, just hearing people's stories and how other people experience the world. I think that's essential to, other cultures, other languages. Language, like learning and speaking other languages, unlocks an entire part of your brain where you actually understand another way of thinking by learning and listening to another language and speaking it. You actually kind of embody another culture, and you start to understand things from another perspective, and that's really so inspiring, because then when you're communicating, you're not just communicating to yourself, you're communicating to people who are different from you and who have different upbringings, they have different culture, languages. Being able to find that common thing that bonds all of us humans, regardless of where you're from and what your background is you can only do that if you really strategically expose yourself to people who are different from you.
Okay. Name one book that changed your perspective on communications.
Only one?
Well, we don't have time for the list. I
Okay,
know
no,
there's a
right.
list.
Yeah,
There's
well
always
done.
a list. Yes.
I would say the correct answer to that, the smart person's answer would be Back of a Napkin by Dan Rome, I believe. That's one of the ones that I
Oh,
read.
okay.
There's like, oh, he gets it. That's like, what you're supposed to say. But actually, the books that really transformed how I communicate is like Wayback Machine, like Garfield and Tintin. I used to be
Oh, okay.
obsessed with Tintin comics, Asterix, Greek mythology. I absolutely was obsessed with all world mythology, and because it was so visual and it was so, these are stories that are thousands and thousands of years old, and we're still
And,
talking about the same thing. We're
and
still
have
talking about
withstood the
like,
test of time. Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, we're talking about like, this child grew up this way, and he, the older son and the younger son and the strife and the mother-in-law that hates the stepchild. It's like we're still talking
All of
about all
that.
that stuff. Like,
Yes.
yeah, that's
Okay.
it.
And the last rapid fire question, what's the best piece of advice you've received as a creator?
Oh, oof, that's not so rapid. That's
Oh,
that's a
that's not.
big one. That's big. That's really big. The best piece of advice I've received as a creator: just go, just do, and forget about what people say. Like,
Right.
telling your story has nothing to do with being successful or selling books. It has to do with getting this thing off your chest,
Yeah.
that you're kind of born with this like thing you have to do, and just drowning out the noise and forgetting about selling books or getting a publisher or getting awards and so on, but just like telling the raw story. And if you've done your job, then you've done your job. Like 300 years from
That's
now,
correct.
nobody will remember you or any of the books that you've written. I think, only maybe the Old Testament, I mean, like, there are not a lot of books out there that can stand the test of more than, so don't even try. Just do it in the way that is authentic to you, and everybody will forget about it anyway in 2 generations. So it's about, you being authentic to you and telling your story. And when you're done at the end of this thing we call life, if you've gotten that thing off your chest in whatever form that works, you're done.
Okay. Okay. So I want to give you a few minutes before we wrap everything up to share about your book, where people find it, and or to share about, well, definitely do that. But also if there are any messages about AI or being an AI power professional that you want to share with the audience, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Camilla. Well, the book is, yeah, so like I said, it's AI powered professional. It's wherever books are sold, mostly Amazon. This is self-published. So you can find, if you go to working-humans.com, you'll find the book, but also I put out a blog every 2 weeks. So fresh articles, fresh comics every 2 weeks. I do a podcast also called Working Humans. That's Apple and Spotify. And that's kind of like a funny way of looking at one aspect of either AI or working life, sometimes in combination, sometimes separately. Talk a lot about communication and engagement there as well. And we just look at one thing. It's about 7 or 8 minutes long, and we learn one thing, whether it's advanced reasoning or whether it's
That's amazing.
understanding.
No, I said that's
Yeah,
amazing.
thanks. Yeah, thank you.
I'm making my little note. Okay, got it.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, I'm really easy to find. My name is a little bit weird. So if you Google it, then you kind of come across all kinds of stuff. I also basically give workshops. I do keynote speaking. I'm a professional keynote speaker. So that's my day job, basically, talking about AI and companies for larger events and conferences and that sort of thing, and moderating, company events, that sort of thing.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you for your time. Like I said, it was great talking to you. Love the book, love the concept. I'm a nerd, so when it comes to AI, I like to consume as much information as I can. And the fact that it's accessible, because once again, I've been in so many rooms where that language barrier between the very technical people and the non-technical people, keeps things from moving forward. So by you bridging that divide, I think that is definitely the way to go, obviously. So
Well,
thank you
thank you.
again for joining us on Catalyst Creators, and we'll see you all next time.
Thank you, Camilla. It was a real pleasure.
You've been listening to Catalyst Creators. Ready to dive deeper into the world of breakthrough innovation? Join our community of forward thinkers at vegaunleashed.com, where innovation meets real world impact.